Tipping your waiter or waitress is something so simple, however, not all people understand the process. Often people say the waitress is paid an hourly wage and any tip given is just extra, but this statement could not be any farther from the truth. Servers are paid a wage of $5.44 in Florida, and dealing with impatient and disrespectful customers does not make their job any easier. Based off of my personal experience as a server and working in the restaurant, I have noticed that many of my coworkers and servers in other restaurants do not have an influx of money and rely on your tip. As some of you may have not worked in a restaurant before, customers are either great and leave you a standard tip, or they are not as nice and leave you little to no money as the tip. The feeling after receiving a great tip is exceptional because you know you did a good job. However, if they leave you a bad or no tip, you're often wondering what you did wrong. Waiters and waitresses are paid well below minimum wage. The government is expecting you to tip. With your tip, a waiter or waitress can make a livable wage, just like you. If you can go out to eat and spend $50, you can afford the tip and contribute to someone else's life. By putting yourself in the waitress at the local restaurant's shoes, who you see working 40 hours a week, would you want people to shun you and not appreciate you, or would you be flattered with a nice tip? The problem lies in the hands of those paying the employees. Realizing you are the one paying them is the first step. With the government counting on you to tip, the Washington Post claims, in other words, are probably making a lot more money than BLS data makes it seem. PayScale, which tracks salaries through crowdsourcing, estimates that in cities like Miami, Boston, and San Francisco, waiters can make up to $13 an hour in tips alone. Elsewhere, they can make up to $10 an hour in addition to their salaries. Waiters are paid a low $5 wage because the government is assuming you're going to tip them at or above minimum wage. I believe waiters should be paid more than minimum wage. Waiters work hard to please you and often complete lengthy hours of side work before you even arrive at the restaurant and they are your server, and after you leave and when the restaurant closes. Being paid $5 during those hours of side work does not seem fair. If running from your table to the kitchen numerous times wasn't enough of a workout, waiters often scrub their areas and clean the bathrooms, all while making the $5 wage. Tipping accordingly can allow someone else to live comfortably. Waiters are trying to make ends meet just like some of you. According to Data USA, the average salary for a waiter is just under $17,000 a year. It might seem like a waiter's job is easy. However, the difference is if you are having a bad day, you can just shut your office door and get through it. As a waiter, they must put a smile on their face and forget about their problems at home and go back to your table. If you can afford to spend the money at the restaurant, you have the money to tip. As a waiter myself, so often the most expensive checks can tip the worst percentages. The people who spend $200 often leave the $10 tips, which does not match standards. The people working inside of restaurants are struggling to make ends meet in most cases, or are college students. The people needing the tips are the people many are refusing to tip. Tipping these workers lets them produce their own income rather than relying on additional income elsewhere or the government. As a young restaurant worker, you will do anything for some spare change. If you're in that waiter's shoes, you will realize the tip means more than you can imagine. Being a young restaurant worker is hard. Being underappreciated is even worse. If we didn't have restaurant workers, we wouldn't be able to go out to eat. By tipping your waiter, you are encouraging them to continue their job building the labor force for restaurant workers. After being a waiter, you understand that workers need tips to live. Being in the environment will let you understand the life of a waiter, and some customers will need to experience that. Tipping sets a precedent for the future. By tipping today, you are setting a precedent for those around you, such as your children at the table, and show them the right thing to do. By starting that process now, if you didn't start years ago, you can set the record straight. Those who often do not tip are teenagers and younger college students, just like us. In order for that stereotype to change, young adults must start being informed of proper tipping. Tipping is not required, however, paying employees for their work is. Waiters are paid $5 per hour, and the government is assuming your tip will put their wage at or above minimum wage. We should all tip our servers and understand their wages and the entirety of their job. Without understanding the job's additional work, most would assume they just come to your table and go back to the kitchen. That assumption would be incorrect. Servers deserve to be treated fairly and tipped adequately upon performance. GentlemanMox.com states, imagine serving for a 5-hour shift and not receiving any tips. You only receive $10.65 for the amount of work you did. That could be enough to afford one meal at a restaurant, but not enough to live on. That is not a sustainable living, which makes tipping all the more important. That is not enough money to live on. If you can go out to eat, you can tip your server in order for them to make a livable wage.